Most of us think that taking one pill a day for cholesterol or high blood pressure is just part of getting older. But what if I told you that a simple change in my diet dropped my total cholesterol level by almost 50 points in a single month, all without medication? That's what happened to me, and in this video, I'll share the exact lessons that transformed my health so you can take control of yours too. Now, before I start, let me share a quick anecdote that demonstrates why I believe the average Singaporean diet today is deeply broken. So in 2024, I attended a class at a Bible college called Everyday Christianity. The goal of the class was to help us look at different parts of our lives through a Christian lens. And one of the topics we discussed was food. Now, during this session, the lecturer asked us to list our favorite foods in the Zoom chat. Some of us said char kway teow, chicken rice, mala hot pot, fried chicken, so on and so forth. And then the lecturer asked, what was the criteria by which we picked these dishes? Was it by the way they looked? How healthy they were? No, of course not. We only decided by taste and taste alone, because we enjoyed it. And then he asked, what does that tell us or suggest about God? There was a pause before he answered. Well, if God created all this food for us to enjoy, it tells us that God likes food, that He loves the variety, taste, and mishmash of cultures of the foods that we get to enjoy. Now, that sounds just about right. The idea that God is not just concerned about our moral behavior, but He's also a creative God who loves food and creates it for our enjoyment. And when I first heard that, I felt almost like a sense of relief. But as I thought about that in the next few months, I began to rethink things. See, the lecturer looked at the fact that we decided what foods we enjoy the most by taste and concluded that God cares very much about the variety of foods and our enjoyment of them. Fair enough. But when we decide the foods we eat solely by their taste, with little regard to the nutritional value or our long-term health, doesn't that seem a little skewed? If taste is our only consideration, doesn't that put us at the mercy of our taste buds? The Bible tells Christians not to worship anyone but God alone, but what if, when it comes to food, we as Christians actually worship our taste buds? And worse still, we've made it a norm in society, and dare I say, in the church as well. So really, this little anecdote that I've shared can be used to draw two different conclusions. One, that God is creative and creates foods for our enjoyment. But secondly, and equally so, we might say that we live primarily by what we enjoy. And taste has become more or less an assumed norm when it comes to food. And hence, an idol for Christians without us even knowing about it. And that means that all of us are in big, big trouble, whether you're a Christian or not, in terms of our health. And now let me walk you through the lessons that I've learned from my cholesterol journey. Now before I start, here's a quick refresher of the main points, the main data points of my cholesterol journey. Now for reference, the average cholesterol levels for non-vegans is 200, so normal meat eaters. And for vegans, it's 40 points lower than that at 160. Keep these two numbers in mind. So for my journey, it started in August 2023. My total cholesterol level when I went to the doctor for a regular blood checkup was 239. And the doctor told me that I might need to start medication soon. 6 months later, now within this 6 months period, I only switched to overnight oats in the last month of this 6 month period. And my cholesterol level, when I took the blood test again, it dropped to 230. From 239 to 230. Now 6 months later, and in this 6 months period, I was fully on oats, but only in the last month did I fully switch to a plant-based diet, so no more meat. And that number dropped from 230 to 184. So you get a sense, right? The final 6 months period, I was fully on oats and plant-based. By this time, it dropped from 184 to 176, right? So I was way above the average for non-vegans at 239, about to start medication, and now I've decreased to just above the vegan average at 176. And with that context set, let's examine what principles we can draw from my case study for your benefit. Now the first is that switching to 1 month of oats only dropped my cholesterol by 9 points, whereas switching to 1 month of plant-based dropped it by a staggering 46 points. Of course, I also ate 6 months of oats during that period, but I suspect the plant-based had a bigger part to play. See, it's not just about not eating meat, it's about replacing that meat with vegetables. In Singapore, the Health Promotion Board guideline is quarter, half. Right? Quarter portion of whole grains, not refined carbs, quarter portion of protein, and half a portion of fruits and vegetables. Now actually, if all of us ate like that, we could close down 2 or 3 hospitals instantly because there wouldn't be enough patients to treat anymore. But of course, our food culture doesn't help. When you walk into any food court, just count how much green there is on the menus you see. Hardly any. When there are very few vegetable options and we just default to what we want, we're probably eating much less vegetables than we ought to. And so that's the first principle. Getting rid of meat and going fully plant-based resulted in a massive drop in my cholesterol levels. Now I've told this to many people, encouraging them to eat more vegetables, but people have generally been quick to resist. So for example, my mom has high cholesterol, and by the way, she eats very healthy by Singaporean standards already. So no fried food, minimal oily food, a mix of meat and vegetables, and even then quite little meat. And she believes because our whole family has a history of high cholesterol, that there's very little else she can do to reduce her cholesterol. And going plant-based seems a little too extreme. But you see, the point is this. I never knew that diet could play such a huge role until I actually tried it myself. If you go plant-based for a few months, and after that your cholesterol is still the same, then okay, maybe it doesn't really work for you. Maybe your condition is truly hereditary. Maybe there's not much hope left for you and you can go back to enjoying your fried foods and at least you die happy. But the point is that until you actually try, you don't know. And this is what you call personalized healthcare or medication, I guess, where you test your cholesterol levels before and after and have real data points to talk about. Not just general principles that nobody knows whether it really works or not. So please, go and try and then decide if it works or not. Now, after I started plant-based and my cholesterol levels dropped to 184, I continued oats and fully plant-based diet for 6 months, and then it dropped to 176. So one might say that there's some sort of diminishing returns going on here. The impact of me going plant-based was enormous at the start, 46 points, and later it wasn't as effective. You might call this cholesterol elasticity. The idea that some people's cholesterol levels are affected more severely than others, even though they may eat the same diet. But for you, this is a very, very hopeful data point if you have high cholesterol. You see, one of the complaints people have is that I already eat meat for 40, 50 or 60 years. Do you really think that 1 month of vegetables will make a big difference? But my example gives hope to everyone who thinks this way. I also ate meat for 30 years before I switched to plant-based. But my result speaks for itself. So, as I mentioned before, if you don't know and you don't have real data, don't talk as if you know. Go and try and decide whether it really works or not. Show me the numbers. Don't give me your silly speculative resistance against plant-based diets. Does that make sense? Now, before people discount what I've said here and dismiss it as a minor quality of life improvement, I want to share about a funeral that I recently attended. This was one of my church friends. This person's father was in his early 60s when one day he had a ruptured brain aneurysm where the blood vessels in his brain suddenly burst. He was admitted to hospital and 3 days later he passed away. Now, a few days later, when I attended the funeral, I asked my friend's mother how she was. She said It was really sudden and really shocking. He was so young, only in his 60s, and they didn't expect it. Then I asked her if he was on any kind of medication, and she said yes, he was on daily medication for, I can't remember whether it's high blood or high cholesterol. But other than that, he didn't have any other medical issues. Now, do you see the assumption present in our modern thinking about medication? Taking a tablet a day is a minor health issue and should not lead to any major life-threatening conditions or illnesses. In medical terms, our condition is being well managed. But is that true? See guys, we know that high blood and high cholesterol can cause aneurysms, and ultimately that ties back heavily to our diet. If my friend's father had understood the role of diet and gone plant-based even for a month like me, is there a chance he might be alive today? Nobody knows. And that's not something that I would tell his wife at the funeral. But isn't it sad to consider that he could very well still be around today if he had just known the benefits of a plant-based diet and adjusted accordingly? See, this is just one man's tragic story. But if we begin to think through the potential implications of what I've been sharing here, you'll begin to see that what I've said here can have seismic societal shifting consequences. It's not just about the long-term patients of chronic illnesses, the repeated doctor visits, the sudden stroke, the months and years of rehab and reduced quality of life. Yes, that's painful and that's critical. But just imagine with me for a second if all of us just ate a little more vegetables at every single meal. The government could very well close down future plans for more hospitals in Singapore to cope with our aging population. This would mean less doctors, less nurses, less medication, less physiotherapy, less insurance, so on and so forth. What I'm trying to say here is that what we eat has implications not just for our own health and the pain that we suffer, but for our entire society and healthcare industry. See, our medical system has made it normal to be on a pill a day. And as a result, most of us continue our meat-based diets with minimal changes. I've even heard stories of people saying, I can eat whatever I want because I'm on daily medication anyways. But may I suggest, reverently, that if you have high cholesterol, high blood, or high sugar, what I call the unholy trinity, and if your doctor has prescribed you one pill a day, can I suggest that you are in extremely dangerous territory, and you should count yourself very lucky if you do not have a stroke, rather than unlucky. So please, if your doctor has told you that you have one or more of the symptoms of the unholy trinity, please do not listen to his advice and just start medication immediately. That's like patching a sinking boat with duct tape or wiping the floor while the pipe is still leaking. Can I instead encourage you to try and address the root cause, which has a lot to do with our diet, and try plant-based for some time. Then go and test your cholesterol levels again and see whether or not it works and whether or not there is improvement. If it still doesn't work, then fine, go and start your medication. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been helpful, and if you have enjoyed the content, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.